Hi guys, and I welcome all of you back to a bit of a very different sort of video I kind of wanted to do because for those living in the UK, you may be made aware of the fact that there's been a lot of news regarding TV presenter Gregg Wallace, MBE, and we'll get to that in a second. But one thing I need to emphasize before we go anywhere is that depending on what this investigation leads to, depending on what is done, I think it's fair to say that this was a very long time coming. And the reason why I'm putting it up on here is that by the time everything comes to a head, I probably want to do like a long follow-up video about Gregg Wallace's decline, and not to mention, for reasons we'll get into, is that this is a series of misconducts that have been happening since at least as far back as 2017. For as far as I know, they've been happening a lot longer than this. But, well, for those who don't know, the story is that there's been a series of complaints made at the BBC regarding Gregg Wallace's inappropriate comments towards female contestants, whether it's on MasterChef or Celebrity MasterChef. But for reasons I'm going to be getting into right now, you'll be very surprised to learn that, well, Gregg Wallace has not exactly done much to redeem himself in the eyes of the public for the comments made. But the story goes first, and I'm taking this from Sky News, is that Gregg Wallace is responding to mounting allegations against him in a defiant video posted online, saying the accusations came from middle-class women of a certain age. Wallace has stepped back from presenting the BBC cooking show MasterChef after accusations he made sexual comments towards staff and celebrity guests on a range of programmes over 17 years. In a video posted on Instagram before 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, the 1st of December, Wallace says he has worked with more than 4,000 contestants over the years, of all different ages, all different backgrounds, all walks of life. Apparently now, I'm reading the paper, there's been 13 complaints in that time, Wallace says. I can see the complaints coming from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age, just from Celebrity MasterChef. This isn't right. Well, considering that, as far as Wallace is concerned, why is he only concerned about middle-class women? What about working-class people that have probably made complaints as well? What about members of staff? It seems you could argue almost immediately that the only thing Wallace seems really concerned about is the bottom line, and that is concerning middle-class women, which that might say something a little bit more sinister, but let's keep going, shall we? The video has prompted outrage online, with TV star Kristen Allsop posting on X about an incident while filming a pilot show with Wallace, alleging his behaviour was totally unprofessional. She used the hashtag middle-class women of a certain age. In a second video posted on Sunday morning, Wallace says, in 20 years, over 20 years of television, can you imagine how many women, female contestants on MasterChef have made sexual remarks or sexual innuendo? Can you imagine? Wallace's intervention follows a denial from his legal team, which said it is entirely false that he engages in behaviour of a sexually harassing nature, in a statement to BBC News. More allegations have emerged against Wallace, age 60, since his departure from MasterChef has announced on Thursday. Newsnight presenter Kirsty Walk told the BBC shortly after the news broke that she saw Wallace use sexualised language in front of a number of people when she appeared on Celebrity MasterChef in 2011. Singer Sir Rod Stewart criticised Wallace on Instagram, and he claimed he humiliated his wife, Penny Lancaster, in 2021. Now, there's also a short article I want to read by a woman called Katie Spencer, and I kind of, again, I can't get away from the idea that they say middle-class women of a certain age, because what happens, don't get me wrong, making those sorts of, using that sort of language and that sort of unprofessional conduct for a man in his position towards any women, working class, middle class, upper class, it's completely unacceptable. But one thing I also find concerning, and you probably know where this is going immediately, is that, well, what about when it comes out there were so many loads of complaints from working class people? So is there a case to be made that they're only concerned now that they say middle-class women are coming forward? And is this whole thing becoming an issue of class or something like that? I mean, I could also make a point that they mentioned on the news this Friday that we need to stop putting television presenters as celebrities. No, they're not. And what I found funny about this statement is that Vernon Kay, who I don't listen to Vernon Kay, and I don't, he's just not for me. After that, literally, the very first song he played on when all of that was going on, "Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies." I am not joking. But so, what do you want to say? Do you think this is the BBC straight up saying to Gregg Wallace, "No, pal, you're on your own"? But the only way you could say they didn't intend to do that is because there was also a story about the Transport Secretary being fired over a case of fraud involving a missing phone back in 2013. So whether you want that could be a very easy scapegoat. But personally, I think we know exactly what it is, and I think you guys know as well if you see where this is going. So anyway, on to Katie Spencer, who is the arts and entertainment correspondent for Sky News. There is a certain irony to how unintentionally funny Gregg Wallace's latest social report server post is. It is a bin fire of an Instagram post, enough to leave those with only the loosest of grasps of crisis management open-mouthed. Rather than a weekend of self-reflection after a bruising week repugnantly, the presenter has instead opted to hit out at one of the key demographics of its brand, middle-class women of a certain age. The most obvious point to make back to him being, who does he think watches MasterChef? But then perhaps he's now opting to embrace a new audience, those who are struggling, like Greg, to understand what he might have done wrong. And by the way, there's more things from Miss Alsop. In her post on Sunday morning, Alsop gave details of an alleged incident. Within 1 hour of meeting Gregg Wallace, he told me of a sex act that he and his partner at the time enjoyed every morning. She just left the room. We were filming a pilot, she said. Did he get off on how embarrassed I was? It was totally unprofessional. I'm a middle-class woman of a certain age. The presenter is yet to directly address any of the allegations. On Saturday, the production company that makes MasterChef, Banijay UK, called for anyone wishing to report allegations of misconduct to contact Lewis Silkin, a legal firm appointed to lead an investigation. A spokesperson said, all information will be handled sensitively and names of those proving evidence to the team will be kept confidential. And bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever appeared on MasterChef or you've ever had any sort of encounter with Gregg Wallace in which you felt that Gregg Wallace made inappropriate comments towards you, that you can back up and you say, I would recommend contacting Lewis Silkin of Banijay UK if you legitimately have serious causes for concern, because, well, I it's the best thing I could do at this point, because, justice has to be served. And the reason why I'm posting this here and not on one of my other channels, and Justice for All, is because, well, we can't really draw... I don't know whether or not Greg... I know that there's a series of allegations, and even though I wasn't in the same room or anything like that to see Gregg Wallace, I can't stand in court, for example, and say, yes, I saw Gregg Wallace made those comments. Because if I wasn't there and I didn't see it, then how could I say that's true? But you get the idea. There's loads of other people, and it's also a testament that this is not just a one-off thing, and for reasons we will get to very, very shortly. Wallace has been a presenter of the programme since 2005, as well as its spin-off Celebrity MasterChef and MasterChef The Professionals. Banijay previously said he has committed to fully cooperating throughout the process after the BBC received complaints over historical allegations of misconduct. Of course, by that point, you may be saying to yourself, well, my details and my confidence, it would be fair to say that my take on events is hardly necessary at this point. Meanwhile, there is also one other thing I feel like I need to highlight, and it's one that I think is the most damning, well, not the most damning of them all, but one of the things that seems like pretty open and shut, if you ask me. A former MasterChef contestant claims Gregg Wallace asked her to tell a colleague at the BBC that she was a sexy bitch word, and said he told a fellow contestant she was handling fish like a rapist. Scottish broadcaster Ashamir Mir took to social media to make the bombshell claims, which detailed her uncomfortable encounter with Wallace during her stint on the show in 2017. It comes after a sexual comments probe saw the MasterChef host step away from presenting on Thursday. In front of everyone, Gregg Wallace told to tell a colleague at the BBC that she was a sexy bitch. No one said anything, and yes, I did complain. She added, I left the competition first, but 2 female contestants, including Ulrika Johnson, told me afterwards that he had told another contestant that the way she was handling fish looked like a rapist doing foreplay. Mrs. Mir also posted a cryptic post of herself standing in an apron next to iconic MasterChef logo while she was on the show. The picture was captioned, always keep your receipts. 13 people, including Kirsty Walk, have complained about Wallace's conduct while working with him for 17 years across 5 shows from 2005 to 2022. This morning, the disgraced MasterChef star lashed out at middle-class women of a certain age in a rant online after he was accused of sexist behaviour. Wearing a Matt Hampson Foundation t-shirt as he filmed himself for his Instagram story, Wallace said he has worked with people of all different ages, all different backgrounds, and all different walks of life. Speaking about the complaints against him, he said they are coming from a handful of middle-class women of a certain age and declared this isn't right. He went on to ask, well, everything we mentioned before, can you imagine women using sexual innuendo? Last night it emerged that the BBC was reportedly warned about the 60-year-old's alarming behaviour in 2008, but nothing was done. Another former contestant, Dr. Kate Thomas, aged 42, and she said that she complained about Wallace's treatment of her on the show 16 years ago, claiming he sexually harassed and bullied her. Dr. Thomas, a spiritual mentor to the stars, slammed him as disgusting and repulsive. Now, I will say is that I could go on, but the important details are this. Whatever comes of this investigation, you better believe there is going to be a full-blown investigation about this, is that, well, Wallace's attempts to justify his behaviour are completely ridiculous and ludicrous. You want to know why that is? It's because how does that justify his behaviour? Guess what? It doesn't. There is also a case to be made about the tone in which Gregg Wallace actually said them. Because if you do want to say, for the example, like, say, Nigella Lawson, when she makes innuendos, is that they are made to the camera and she doesn't do them towards anybody else. Because for the most part, Nigella Lawson cooks on her own when she does programs. And also, you can get what the intention is, but I don't understand why that's even a case either. But we're not talking about like Nigella Lawson. We're talking about Gregg Wallace. And whether you want to argue about the double standards or not, well, take that up with Nigella Lawson. Complain to her if you feel that there's an issue. Meanwhile, like I said, again, this is about Wallace's behaviour and not Nigella's. And don't even bring Nigella into it. She hasn't got anything to do with this. Secondly, and this is probably the biggest comment of them all, is that Gregg Wallace might be infuriated about middle-class women of a certain age now, but what's going to happen when, women from, working-class backgrounds start coming into this? Because let me tell you something right now. If Gregg Wallace thinks that he can get away with it by talking to middle-class women of a certain age like that, then guess what? I feel Gregg Wallace is under the impression that he can do it to just about anybody. I know that and you know that. And why is that? Well, because unfortunately for Gregg Wallace, and I've seen this song and dance done too many times, Gregg Wallace is what they call malicious. He knows fine well that for a man in his position, he knows fine well he should be doing better than saying those things. And guess what? That doesn't really seem to shake him, because as long as he can get away with it, that's all that matters. And by the way, I talked before about one of his representatives say that we need to stop making, presenters into stars. Well, with that being said, the BBC isn't exactly shy to say Gregg Wallace MBE on the credits of every episode of MasterChef when he received it. his partner, John Trudell from MasterChef, he doesn't have an MBE, and to be honest, I don't really feel like I would show that off whenever I'm doing the show, because whether you want to argue it's important or not, well, they were more than keen to make Gregg Wallace appear important, and considering all the shows they did, they suggested the idea that he probably was reliable enough to do them. But that's how it is, and we'll see in the days to come where this takes us. But to be honest, I feel like this was a long time coming, and also, if there were historical cases of them just being ignored, well, I think, justice is long. I think, forget, Gregg Wallace struggling to find work on television after this. I feel like there needs to be some actual form of punishment in case. Because the whole case about, Hugh Edwards escaping jail is one thing, and I'm kind of appalled by that situation anyway. But then, of course, Gregg Wallace is, well, there will start to come a pattern of people like them getting away with it, and I can't condone that for a second. So I hope that's cleared everything up, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys again next time. Take care, and bye-bye for now.